So I'm going to thread my needle with a yard of Nymo, because working with a yard to start is the best way to avoid getting too many tangles, twists, or knots in your thread while you're working with brick stitch. After you finish out the yard, maybe you want to switch out to a longer thread, but only do that if you're comfortable working with your project. Otherwise, keep using a yard. That way you're less likely to be fighting knots along the way. I'm just straighten mine out. You have 10 yards of Nymo in your kit, so you got plenty, I hope, to work with. Look at this, fresh needle and everything. This should be a size 10 needle. A lot of my kits are going to have size 12s because size 12s will pass through the itty bitty seed beads size 15s multiple times with less issue. I'm not sure how this needle will do when it's time to start going back through the seed beads. I will need to play it by ear, really. All right. The part that confused a couple of people when we were doing the testing last night was starting your thread. So I say to go through your cord with your needle between the knot and what you know will be the bottom of your SDragon, because this is where the tail is going to connect. Where we're starting is where the tail is going to connect. And the reason why I say go through the cord and then tie it on is to help just establish some stability, so your thread isn't twisting around while you're working, and it's not going to slip up and down in the cord. Doesn't matter what kind of knot you use as long as it's knotted for security. And as you're working, tuck the tail up with the cord. So you're holding the tail of the project as you're working, and it's not going to keep getting in your way and caught in your thread. And you don't want to cut this. If you cut this, your knot can come undone and you could end up dropping beads. So don't cut your tail. We'll bury it in the body of the dragon later on with the cord. The first beads you're working with are the size A beads, size 15s. These are cobalt that I've picked for the blue dragon. And this kit is going to be on my Etsy as an option for purchase. This is pretty much the test run of these colors, and if everything works well, you can buy these exact colors in your kit when testing is complete. And I just realized I should probably have my instructions right in front of me, but they're on another screen. So 2 seconds while I find them. Do, 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 do. There we go. So we're picking up 2 A beads, and we are going to do a modified ladder stitch onto the cord itself. So with your 2 beads, find a spot between the knot and the rose, but as close to the knot as possible to put your needle through. And when you pull your needle and thread all the way through, your 2 seed beads should settle next to each other. So you have 2 beads, both with their openings facing away from the cord. Camera, cooperate. Me and my camera have a love-hate relationship, and today it is hating me. I'm going to take control of it and make it zoom in so that you guys can see those 2 beads and how they're angled. It's really important that they don't angle up, but they stand out from your cord because you're working perpendicular. Okay, autofocus off. Let's bring you guys in. So they are side by side, facing away from the cord. And with your needle on the other side now, you're going to pick up another 2 beads. This is why I'm supposed to tuck that tail out of my way so I'm not fighting with it. 2 more size 15s. And you're going to go back through that cord again, not exactly where you started, but close to, but also through one of those 2 beads. And this one is actually going to become the middle bead of what happens next. Remember that pesky tail? Yeah, it's still there bugging me. So I have 2 beads on either side of the cord, and both of them are facing out away from the cord when they're settled next to each other. See, there's the hole, and the cord's behind it. And when you're looking from the top down, you should have beads, cord, beads. So they're flanking your cord. Now we're going to make sure that there's 3 on both sides. You pick up 1, go through the cord, and through either of the beads on the other side. Doesn't matter which, as long as you pick one of them. And as you draw your thread through, make sure it is snug, but also with its opening facing out away from the cord. So I have 3 on that side now. We're going to make it even. Put a 3rd one on this side. And they may shuffle around. They may try to clump up in groups of 3. But as long as they are sitting next to each other with their openings away from the cord, they will do what you want to do what you want them to do in the SDragon build. So I'm going to go through the cord again, and also through the middle bead here. And now I have 3 on either side. 3 on this side with the opening facing outwards, and 3 on that side with the opening facing outwards. If you were to make brick stitch, you would call these a ladder stitch foundation, where you have 3 beads side by side, and now you're going to brick stitch on top of them, but away from the cord. So we're not following the cord up or down, we're going away, outwards, away from the rows. And to start the brick stitch, we're only going to do a 2 bead. So you pick up 2, you hook your needle between, if I can get it, the side and middle bead. So the far side and middle bead is what I call it in the instructions. Don't let the beads slip through this. Keep them on the outside, and then you're going to double your needle back through the last one on the thread. When you pull it tight, the 2 beads will sit side by side, facing outwards away from the cord, in kind of a brick pattern. So there are 3, and then there are 2. And they're kind of offset the way a brick wall is. You kind of see I'm struggling with holding the other 3 on the other side. Don't worry about that. The biggest thing is, don't pull your beads so tight that your beads on the outside touch. You need this gap to stay here for when you start building up the side belly of the SDragon. And the last thing I'm going to show you is we're going to do an increase, and the rest of this project will be brick stitch increase 2 3 2 3, and my camera just glitched, sorry. So for the increase, you're going to pick up 2 beads of the 3 that will be here, hook under the thread between the 2 beads of your last row, row 2, under the thread. Not a big deal if you go through the thread, but it's not as secure as being right underneath it. Pull your thread through, but not the beads. Leave the beads on that other side, and try not to catch your cord. Draw them so that they fall side by side like they did for me. Sorry, these beads are just so itty bitty. And then your needle goes through the last bead you added in order to secure it onto that thread you hooked. Oh, but I almost got a slip here. This thread, you have to make sure it stays between the beads of the row. Don't let it slip to the outside, or you'll get all kinds of funky twists that are just not fun to fight with when it's time for peyote. And to finish this increase, to make it a group of 3, you're going to pick up one more bead. One more bead. Come on. Go in the same space between the 2 beads of that second row. My hands are starting to shake now because I'm holding my arm for too long. Draw your needle through, but leave the bead on that other side. And when your bead is side by side, go up through it in order to pull it close against the 2 that are already there. And that's the brick stitch increase. Yes, there is a gap when I did this. There's a gap right here between these 2 beads. That's okay. And in my instructions, I tell you guys, it's okay too. Your peyote stitch will squeeze them back together again. It's just because you've got 3 beads attached to 2. This third one is kind of pulling them apart a little. But as long as you aren't drawing your beads too tight, as long as you aren't reefing on your thread and trying to close off that space, the delicas in the belly buildup will push those seed beads back where they're supposed to be. So you'll have a nice, smooth dragon scale belly. Okay, one more thing. One more thing. We're going to decrease. And decrease is just 2 beads. 2 beads. You're going to go to the space further away from you between the middle and the side bead. Between the middle and the side bead. Draw your needle all the way through. Leave the beads on that other side. Get them all snug and facing outwards together. And from the bottom to the top, lock them into place. Yeah, it's still kind of wobbling around, but that's okay. The next step, the next rows going up and down the side of the dragon will make these brick stitch fall into place. So I just finished the tag that will be the underbelly of the dragon where the tail is. So it's actually, looking at it from the top down, it looks like this is what the tail will be. And I gotta work on the part that's going to be the actual belly that wraps around the bead. So I need to get back to where that cord is, which means passing the needle through each row of beads. Pick a bead in the row and work your way back to where the cord is. Make sure you don't tangle up your cord, hooking on other beads. It doesn't matter if you're working through the middles or left or right side beads, just as long as you're only going through 1 bead in each row until you're doubled back again as I hook my thread. Okay, yeah, don't do what I just did. I skipped a row. That's a bad thing. Don't skip rows. I don't want a frog. Maybe I'll get fortunate and yeah, okay. Da, 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 da. You must go through every row as Saren skips a row. Do 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 do. This needle just might be too... No, it's good. There we go. I thought the needle would be too big to go back through these beads again, but then it cooperated with me, so I'm fine. I'm good. Still working back towards the cord. 1 row at a time. And at this last row that's right against the cord, go through the middle bead in those 3. Middle, come on, you almost had it there, camera. It'd be almost comical if it wasn't so frustrating when my camera doesn't cooperate with me. I should have just left my autofocus off, but the stuff happened and the things needed my attention. So, middle bead of the 3 that are against the cord. And you're going to go through the cord and on the opposite side, make sure you know what your middle bead is. So it's that one. Through that middle bead too. Do, 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 do. Don't pull on it too tight. You don't want to get rid of this gap in between. But you're now set up to restart your brick stitch on the other side of the cord. I'm fighting with them. I want them to look nice, but they're not going to look nice for me. So I have the tag. This will be where the tail of the dragon connects, like this. And I'm working my way around to the other side of the bead with the belly. So it's a whole lot of brick stitch, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3 repeats. I think I said repeat 9 times the 2, 3. So you have 17 rows altogether or something like that. Check the instructions for actual numbers, guys. Should have like a disclaimer pop up right here. Read the instructions. We already have 3 against the cord. Pick up 2 beads, hook through thread, leave beads on the other side. Go through the last bead you added. And if you're not sure, because they decide to twist on you, you can pull your thread loose a little bit and preemptively thread as long as you're not going through the nymo and you're only going through the bead. Like that. Now I have a row of 2 on my row of 3. And we're going to add 3 and 2 and 3 and 2 and keep repeating all the way. Ugh, I gotta stop fighting. My beads aren't going to sit proper. They will look pretty when the peyote stitch happens. That's what matters, is that they're there and the peyote stitch will drag them into their position. So I have 19 rows of brick stitch and we're going to attach the long ribbon to the other side of the rose bead to create the body of the SDragon. I want to make sure my needle goes right underneath the knot. Also, that my knot isn't too close to the rose. Something that's been discovered in the test kits, that if the knots are too close together, you get more of a kink in the belly than a rounded belly. So to avoid that, go as close to the knot as possible after making sure your knot isn't too close. Pull the thread through. It wraps around nicely, neatly, and nicely all at the same time. And now I need to build the other tag. This will be the tag that the head builds onto. So using the A beads, because we're still brick stitching with A beads, I'm going to build a little tag of brick stitch that the head can connect to in part 2. So same as we did when we started this long ribbon, we're going to pick up 2 beads and double back through the cord and into the middle bead of the 3 that are here. I'll get them lined up and show you. So middle bead of the 3, camera focus here. Hi, camera. It's going to be one of those videos, isn't it? All right. Taking control of the camera. Yes, we like kinky trees, not kinky bellies. This is most definitely the preference. Autofocus. Bring her in. My background's going to be a little fuzzy, but I'm sure you all understand. Okay, so I got the 2 beads on my needle. The needle goes through the cord close to the knot, and then through the middle bead of this ribbon of brick stitch. And you draw them close and snug without making knots against the cord, but under the knot. Preferably without making knots, I said. and cut to this being done and not taking me so long. Make sure my ribbon's not twisted before this next part. I'm going to pick one of these two side beads. It doesn't matter which one, just pick one of the side beads beside the middle to go back through the bead and the cord and one of the two on the other side. It doesn't matter which one. I know from experience that if I pick this bead here, then when I put the third one on, it'll be more centered on the cord. But sometimes you just got to pick one where it looks like it will turn into a nice row of 3 beads side by side, another triangle. And it's always situational which one might be the better choice. Again, making sure my ribbon's not all twisted, get my knot out of the way, and draw them close together. So now I have 2 beads on the new side. 3 are already on the other side, but I need 3 on both. So time to pick up a third and go back through the cord and that long ribbon again. Pick the middle bead. Snug it close. See, there's 3. And we go back to the other side because that's where we're working the new tag from. So pick another side bead. I like to go to the one that I haven't already used yet, so I'm not overstressing my size 15s. Go through the knot and through the middle bead one last time. Come on. You can angle there. Nope, nope, nope. Does this look familiar, guys? Nope. There we go. Wait, are we sure? Yep, we're through. All right. Snug, all together, in a row, like peas in a pod, all lined up. All of the seed beads are facing away from the cord on this new side. I have 3 in a row to start the brick stitch, and I leave through the middle bead for this first. My light is just not good on this. For the first row. So this is row 1. Take 3. Attach to a cord. Next part is a decrease to 2 seed beads, 2 of the A beads. Hook your thread around the bridge just like you did in that long ribbon. Double back over to the last bead you added. And carefully pull them together. So there's a row of 3 and a row of 2. Now, increasing to 3. Brick stitch does take the longest in this SDragon. It's not that you guys are struggling or because it's brand new to you, maybe you're having a harder time with it and it's taking forever. No, it really is a bit of a process. Kind of the way, you know, making a foundation chain in crochet and then doubling back to make your row 1 works. Takes a little bit of extra effort because you're trying to line everything up right. You're trying to figure out what space you're going through. And once you're done and you're on your way, it goes so much faster. Picking up a 3rd bead for this 3rd row. Make sure I go through the bridge of the 2. Don't pull your bead through. Make sure it stays on that other side. And then double back through it to make 3. Making sure the thread stays on the right space, not slipping over to the outside. I made a note about slipped threads in the tutorial also, but if your thread happens to slip out to the outside and you don't notice until later, don't be too obsessed over it. The peyote stitch will usually fix and hide that slip stitch. Best thing to do, of course, is to avoid slipping your stitch outside of the brick. So that was one repeat, and we gotta do another repeat. I'm just making sure I'm double checking my instructions so I'm not confusing people. Da, 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 da. Repeat steps 8 to 13 2 more times. Okay, so we've done one repeat. We're gonna do a second repeat of 2 to and then 3. This will be row 4 and row 5 in brick stitch. For you guys who are watching these videos back to back, it's been a couple of days in between for me, so that's why it kind of seems like I'm not in the same flow that I was in the last tutorial. It's just a new day. Got a bit of the shakes happening. But we're making progress. Row 5 is another increase to 3 beads again of brick stitch. Do, do, do. Don't slip outside. Stay inside. Please and thank you. Why is everything going wonky on me? There we go. They just weren't lining up for me neatly. I want to make sure also, I haven't mentioned this yet in this video, make sure as you're drawing your thread close, you're making it snug, but you're not reefing on your Nymo to make it stiff and standing up. You want to keep it flexible so that as you do the peyote beads, the ribbon moves to accommodate them and you don't end up with a super straight SDragon body by accident. That's the second repeat done. So I have row of 3, 2, 3, 2, and 3. Everybody know what's going to happen now? Well, if I want to peyote stitch, and I tried doing that with 3 beads at the end, my peyote stitch would look all wonky, and I would have a string hanging out jumping over to this space. So we're going to do another addition of 2 beads at the end that will let us begin the peyote stitch smoothly and seamlessly. You like this, guys? Hang on. 2 beads to make the decrease. So this is now 7th row, 6th row, after the 3 beads. What does my actual wording say? Repeat steps 8 to 13 2 times. You'll have 5 rows of brick stitch, then add 1 more row of 2 A beads for a total of 6 rows. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ta-da! I did what my instructions say. Yay! Foundation of the dragon is done at this point. So if you are watching and following the tutorial exactly, this takes us to row 2 to 6, take 3, step 23. You got a nice little picture of a half crescent around a rose made of brick stitch. Now we're going to peyote.